Hello everybody, as promised, Mr. Dwight's Doodles, and this time around in support of your extended response homework, our focus today is to look at this thing called diffusion. This goes back to what you did in year 9 with cell biology. And the question is asking you to discuss where diffusion takes place and examples of diffusion. So I'm going to give you 4 examples, and you should talk about these 4 examples within your response. So let's have a look at example number 1. So let's get some colour on this little bad boy. What we have here is a blood vessel, and in our blood vessel we have our red blood cells. Now remember, the blood does not enter into the cell. Now we know from when we've done respiration, we've got Orton, Gangster, Crew and Winner, and then it releases energy. So we need to get oxygen and glucose into this cell here. And so these red blood cells carry the oxygen. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's 4 in the red blood cell. There's 0 within the cell. And so what this creates is a theoretical point. There's location A. So there's A, here's B, and there's none in B. And it creates a concentration gradient. So if you were to put another oxygen atom or molecule there, it will go down the concentration gradient from the red blood cell into the cell for aerobic respiration. Now, one of the products of aerobic respiration is this one here. This is CO2. So CO2 will be building up within the cell. So here we can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we call that in B there, look, 5 carbon dioxide. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But there's none in the blood vessel. And so what it does is it creates a concentration gradient, and the carbon dioxide moves from when there is a lot of it, a high concentration, and it moves into the blood plasma down a concentration gradient from a high concentration to a low concentration. Even if we were to put 2 carbon dioxides in there, what we would then have is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1 and 2, it still creates the gradient, and so carbon dioxide moves out of the cell into the blood vessel by diffusion. So there's 2 examples, one with oxygen, one with carbon dioxide. Now the other one is if we have that's my attempt at drawing some lungs. If we were to look inside the lung, what we have is something called an alveolus. And surrounding the alveolus is a blood vessel. And similarly, there's the red blood cells with their biconcave shape to increase their surface area, absorb more oxygen. As the blood comes back to the lungs, it contains a high concentration of carbon dioxide. So there we go. There is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do this to see. So there's location A, there's location B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's stick 1 in there. There it is. That's what it creates. Concentration gradient. The carbon dioxide moves from a high concentration in A to a low concentration in B, down a gradient. The other way, when you breathe in, here's the oxygen. There's 5 there. There's none in there because the blood is rich with carbon dioxide. And so the oxygen diffuses from the alveoli or alveolus into the blood vessel. So there's another example. Let's take it to something slightly different. Let's get the old green going. We're not self-correcting our work, but what we have here is a leaf of a plant. At the top here, we have what's called the palisade layer. Now, the palisade layer begins with P. P is photosynthesis, and that is carbon dioxide plus water equals glucose and oxygen. It's the Orton Gangster Crew Winner turned around. And so what has to happen is you need carbon dioxide delivered to the palisade layer of the leaf. There are holes on the underside of the leaf. These are called stomata. Carbon dioxide, let's get the colours right. Carbon dioxide is in the air because respiring organisms put the carbon dioxide back into the air. There we go, I've drawn three. In photosynthesis, they're being used up to make glucose, and so they diffuse through the mesophyll layer into the palisade layer. And similarly, there's your oxygen being built, constructed, made in the palisade layer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that would diffuse from a high concentration in there to a low concentration outside, down a concentration gradient. And the final example, probably my favorite, is in the small intestine. In the small intestine, this is the doorway into the blood. So there's the blood vessel called the villi in the small intestine. And when your glucose arrives coming along the small intestine, this is not to scale, obviously, the glucose will diffuse from the small intestine through the wall of the villi into the blood. They can also be actively transported in as well, but that's another scientific concept we'll talk about at another day. So in the answer to your question, you're going to have to discuss examples of what happens in the leaf, the villi, cell to blood vessel to cell, and the lungs. I look forward to seeing your responses this week.